No, I was doing this. I was doing this for Casey. All right. So the following session is, I don't know if you've been, yesterday or 2 days ago, we had a session during the One Summit about deploying open air interface, core and RAN on bare metal environment. We've Red Hat OpenShift as a GATS platform. As part of that experiment that we did, we came up with a lot of learnings. And these learnings are meant to provide some insights on where we can focus next in Nephio as well as part of R3 and beyond. So let's start with the obvious. Who in the room is hands-on with KPT and Porch? Who in the room wants to be hands-on with KPT and Porch? It's the same people. All right, so then forget this slide. But if you're not hands-on and you want to be, the learning curve is quite steep because these tools are not necessarily widely adopted tools. And one could argue that the documentation is also something that you can experiment a little bit with try and error. So be aware when you embark the journey, there is a learning curve. And it's key, right? If you want to, walk that path and go to the cloud, interconnected cloud automatically, be aware. That's the first learning. And so what we're doing here, we're creating better documentation. We are hopefully going to create better how-tos to help you, the community, embark on that journey.
Yeah. So the next one, so how many of you have, just tried to place your own KPT packages, not the ones which are, placed by Nephio in the catalog repository or the example packages? Has anybody hosted their own packages somewhere on their own GitHub? And then once you have hosted them and you try to deploy them, I feel all of you must have faced the same kind of struggle, when you want to delete them.
Bingo. But hang on. That's the next slide.
Yes.
No, but the point that we're trying to make here is just that there is some non-deterministic behavior.
Yes.
So you apply a recipe working out of the box. You apply the exact same recipe the day after, you're going to wait a couple of hours.
Yes.
And eventually you're going to wait a couple of more hours until you're going to figure, I'm going to do it again. And it works. So I know the community, most of the folks are aware about this. We talked about this a little bit earlier today. But be aware. If you start the journey tomorrow, expect some of this. And here is a little bit of a potential resolution for now.
Another thing I would like to mention, don't forget about that they have to be very careful with the tags and the branches, which we're going to bring up soon.
Okay, you can go with this.
Go with this.
No, go.
So, that...
hang on.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you guys write a bug on that? Did you write a bug on the previous one? That's a bug, so right. We
go back.
We don't know about it. We don't know about it. We can't.
Another one?
Back. I think there is a bug, right? That's why the pictogram is. But I think the discussion we had a bit earlier today is what's the future of Porch. So I don't want to create bugs.
I think though we should just if there's no bug that matches what you find, try a new one. If there is a bug, maybe just put a comment. Yeah, I've got this too.
We'll document. We'll create that. Thank you.
And I think the short-term future Porch is Porch, so we do need to know what's wrong with it, so that if it's a really big issue or it's easy to fix, we can fix it.
Yeah, and if someone else finds it, sorry. Yeah.
So if someone else is in trouble and then they say, I wonder, is this working or not? They can go and look in the issues, and if they see there's a bug there, maybe you guys have a workaround. You put it in the comments. You can.
Yeah.
It's contributions to the community as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is already there actually. During our one, John created a section there. How to go with the deletion process. But the thing is more, to go in that direction, when we do CI, we always check in CI that when everything is fine, we just do an end-to-end deployment, but we don't do end-to-end remove. There is a very big question which everybody asks. Hey, I have deployed Nephio in my laptop by myself. How can I uninstall it? It's not possible. Exactly. Depends. I mean, how they have done it using Ansible playbooks. Then you cannot remove every single thing, right? So deletion is something which is really important, and have a clean environment after that, right?
Sorry. Well, it's always a matter of perspective. But I do agree. And so, thank you.
Let's go next one, yeah. Next one. Ah, this one.
Hang on, I don't think we're done. There's still jokes coming in.
Oh, okay.
Hang on, it's still coming.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Exactly. So anyway, I think this one is clear. Any question? Yeah, now they're shy.
So.
Now they're shy. Huh?
Okay, let's just
see. Okay, go for it.
Okay. So, I mean, earlier I mentioned about the Git tagging and branching, right? So today, as we don't have a really clear documentation on that regards, it's a feedback for ourselves also that we're gonna write a documentation where, we can explain people that how to use the different branches and tags, and how do you mention tags? Actually, in the tag, if sometimes you have a hyphen or you have a slash or things like that, it really changes. And there's no, so that's what we have to do now. So earlier the resolution was trial and error, make different tags in different branches. And then the resolution now is to write a clear documentation and a procedure how to do it. Because it's more like, if you remember, when you started doing everything and putting for OpenShift, especially for R2, for every single, in a Git repository, if there are different packages, for every package you have to create a tag. That means on the same repository, there are 10,000 tags.
Unmanageable.
Exactly.
And by the way, I forget to preface this presentation is we took 4 people that knew nothing about Nephio, and we asked them to make Nephio works on OpenShift and then deploy OAI. And that's the feedback we got. So it's not feedback from me doing it. It's feedback really from people outside of the community doing it. And yeah. So anyway, let's continue a little bit. So exactly, need for documentation. So out of this presentation, if we agree, we will create the pull request or the doc.
Go ahead.
I can give you another. So until we are tied with kept, there is another workaround resolution. So the problem is valid, is to use kept CLI to create the branches and the tags, and then you can push to the branch. But okay, that is the other thing is you don't do it manually.
I think we're preaching GitOps here to everybody. So kept CLI for me defeats the purpose. But that's my opinion. It will be documented. It will be documented. Thank you, Isti. Yeah, no, that's a good workaround, and that's what we need. Although it defeats the purpose of GitOps. Now, so this and the next 2 are going to be a bit more, how to say, controversial. Maybe not. I don't know. So, who did deploy Nephio on the sandbox environment? Okay, so when you do it, if you, we should have maybe pulled the architecture, but yeah. You're probably familiar by now. Nephio deploys on 3 different clusters, kind clusters, 1, 2, 3. And Nephio takes care of the physical wiring between these clusters with a router or a switch, whatever. That is the SR Linux switch from Nokia, okay? It's physically wiring everything together. Now, sorry? Yeah, it could be any switch. Right now, we support this one. The point here is that when you take what was demonstrated by Victor previously, right, to do the CI and the way we're testing it, when you take that exact recipe and try to apply it on a bare metal environment, well, it doesn't work because you don't, it doesn't translate to a real bare metal kind of environment where the fabric is already existent. And so I think this is where we need a little bit of thinking in the community. And I know we brainstorm quite a bit already, and we have ideas of solutions coming up on how we could do this more effectively in a more real kind of environment and not just in the sandbox environment. Any reaction?
Kubernetes is not a solution.
I know.
So Kubernetes is based. So we use Container Lab, by the way, and so Kubernetes is a way to deploy Container Lab within a cluster. So the problem that we have here is you need something that is multi-cluster, right? Now, we discussed it before, but I disagree that what we do right now. So what do we do today, right? Just to make it clear to the people, is we deploy 3 clusters. And somehow we want to emulate as close as possible to the physical world, right? So in other words, what it means is that you have to, if in a bare metal, so we support one interface at the moment. So in a bare metal, someone has to physically plug a wire in the cluster server and connect it to the switch, right? And then you have to configure the switch and stuff like that. So we do that in the sandbox completely automatic. Okay, so we basically put the wire and put an interface inside of the Docker container. We create it and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of stuff that is happening to simulate a real environment. Of course, if you deploy on the bare metal, you don't need all of that, and you need to take care of that, because we only take care of it in the sandbox space. You see what I'm saying? So that's the challenge. So can we build something that is if you go to the bare metal, that is giving that capability in that bare metal environment? Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think this is exactly what you are suggesting with SDC, Cloud Native Yang. I think we have.
So there is 2 things that there is 2 things that could be considered in this space. One is with SDC. So today I have. So in release 1, I basically built in half a day this whole thing, right? So it's kind of, I took a few shortcuts and stuff like that to get something out of the door, right? But so SDC could be the way to do it in a multi-vendor fashion, right? So that's one, right? So basically, there is also configuration of the switch and stuff like that is happening. So we are using, I use Yang, I use the Yang of Azure Linux to basically do it. So we could build that in a multi-fashion way. The second problem that we have, and that has come up with various people, by the way, is that our sandbox today is a single VM, and we deploy everything inside. So there has been a bunch of people that want to actually deploy every cluster in another VM and want to wire it all together or deploy it on GCP and so on and so forth, right? So there has been people who want to do that. The challenge for that space is that there is no solution that does multi-cluster wiring. Actually, I actually have the code, but I want to refactor it with some other thing. So I have some code that actually solves that problem, which basically is what Container Lab does, but in a multi-cluster fashion, basically. So it auto wires that thing. So I did not upstream it yet because of the fact that there are some other dependencies that I want to resolve first to leverage that. But that will not solve the bare metal necessarily, but that will make our test environments more flexible. You see, because that would be more for people like we discussed it in your environment. You said it can even work in physical clusters, by the way, because if you have physical clusters or a VM, doesn't really matter. If you have an ability to kind of build a virtual network without being constrained to the physical, we could have way more flexible options to deploy Nephio and emulate as close as possible to the bare metal and even do the bare metal stuff, right? So this is a space where we can, I have a lot of components to fix that, but we have to put some effort in place to put them together.
Thank you for that deep explanation. And so that's the resolution, required design and architecture. I think we agree. So yeah, I was really scratching my head and I lost a couple of hairs figuring it out, but I'm sorry. All right, I'm going to move on. Okay, I'm just gonna move on. We just talked about that one as well, right? So I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm accelerating. Yeah, maybe you can talk.
Yeah.
Get us.
So I mean, this is something which so when yesterday when I showed the demo of me and Alexei showed the demo on deploying the real RAN, the DU and using with the real RU and deployed via Nephio, which we showed yesterday. So it wasn't that straightforward, though. Everything was deployed under 10-12 minutes. The people who have used Nephio, they know that it's not the case. It's not going to happen in 10-12 minutes, the state it is. So I had to make changes in a way that I had to remove some KRM and KPD. I had to remove some pipelines from there, from the KPD file, because they were not necessary, let's say, in that environment. And especially the thing which is there in bare metal, as we have mentioned earlier, also, it's networking, which is one of them, because the switches which I use in the environment, they were not the ones, let's say, which could have supported what is done in R2 at the moment, let's say. And then another important thing is that when we use a DU or a UPF, which is more in a real scenario, sometimes we need DPDK, or for that we need SRIOV. And and we might use multiple NICs also for one single network function. And the way the CRs, which we have, either the infra CR, the NF deployment CRs, all these CRs which we have, they are not really, let's say, SRIOV aware. Because in SRIOV, there can be two different modes. It can be net device or VFIO PCI, like pass through. So it's a little bit more detailed. So these kind of things which are not there. So I had to just hack it through quickly to make it, let's say, make the NF deployment aware. So that because the idea is also that the operator which we write, the operator should also do some pre-checks before deploying the NF, that the infra is ready or not. Though these checks can also be done by Nephio, and the operator does not have to do it again and again, because then we just gonna bloat the operator with so many things. But I decided to do it this way, because this way the operator can be reusable without Nephio also, let's say. So in that scenario, I had to make the NF deployment aware of SRIOV. And then another thing which is there is also, setting up custom MAC addresses. Sometimes, though it is not encouraged to use fixed IP addresses or fixed MAC addresses in a cloud environment, because that's the beauty of cloud. But this is something which is a possibility to be also done, it's a possibility which Kubernetes gives us, right? That we can do it if we really want to for a particular environment. So adding that possibility would also be nice, because let's say, especially when we are working with radio, and certain people who don't have proper implementation of configuring the radio remotely, they had to do things statically on the radio side. And for that regards, they had to use some static addresses. Because if I'm getting everything dynamically, the radio would not be aware, I will not accept the traffic, for example. So that is just an example.
Yeah, I just want to summarize a bit. That was a lot.
Yeah.
That was a lot. Yeah. So I think the main message here is that we need maybe to look at the NF deployment and see how we can enhance, or if that's the place to enhance, to make it more SRIOV aware. That's the main message. There is a couple of sub messages to this, but that's the goal. Yeah. So that's exactly the point.
Yeah, we will discuss that. I'll create an issue with that. Then that's
Oh yeah, to summarize. Oh, hang on.
Yeah.
Thanks. So maybe yet another perspective and option for both of these issues, actually, this and the previous one. So in early versions of Nephio, when I gave here are the components that I think we should develop, there are two components that were exactly about this. So a controller for intercluster connectivity and a controller for fabrics, right? And we had a few people come in and show us solutions already made for that, right? Kind of POCs. When you have a controller, these things become exactly like, whether it's SRIOV or not, doesn't matter so much as long as you can specify your infrastructure requirements, including networking infrastructure, right? So fabric and intercluster connectivity, right? So in many environments today, I mean, this is the big revolution I think we're doing with Nephio, right? In most traditional ways of thinking, it's you orchestrate your infrastructure. That's all done. You test it, everything works. And now you put your workloads on top. right? That's kind of the Etsy model of doing things as well. You have your VIM at the bottom, and you start layering things on top. And here we're presenting a really flat look at all of this together. So a single package includes networking, infrastructure, low-level networking, higher-level networking too, intercluster connectivity, right? Because our workloads are inter-sited by nature, right? So I think the challenge here is really not so much about making things SRIOV aware, but rather a modeling challenge. How can we find a way to model these in an abstract way while also giving room for extensions when you have to, for example, set a specific SRIOV parameter, but without becoming implementation specific to specific fabric or manufacturer, right? So we abstract that with a controller who actually does the job. It takes these requirements and reconciles them into a reality. So I think that can work for both of these, intercluster and fabric. Yeah, we kind of do that, but I think, as you said, it's a modeling challenge to me. Like the infrastructure is there, but we need to understand how to model it.
The thing that we did not do during the sandbox is we didn't model SRIOV basically. So because we basically focused on MAC VLAN and IP VLAN because that's what the sandbox needed. So we had support for SRIOV, but that was not thought through and developed properly. So it's to solve this, it's actually what we have. It would be very easy to fix without correct. So it's just that we didn't really take care fully of the SRIOV component, I think, that's what we have to fix, where we have to fix it. So because we just in the sandbox so far, we just did MAC VLAN, IP VLAN just to get that to work, but we never really focused on bare metal. So it's a very small thing to resolve this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, we do have the model.
It cannot be very use case specific. One thing which we are doing right now is FCO-DBDK SRO is specific here, but you cannot predict what the users will be of in Nephio, right? I know the enablers are there. What I'm saying is more focus should be on the framework. The framework should be such a way that once we have a model which can be tuned in, it can actually spun up the specific resources, and that should be the way to do it. Of course. Yeah.
My point is that the framework, we have the framework. What we didn't do is there is a specific environment that we didn't develop properly. So in other words, it's not, we don't have to change the framework. We just have to resolve this specific environment.
Exactly. I mean, that's how actually I did to make it aware, at the moment. So I just added additional parameters.
Hey, thank you. These are good discussions. And so, well, to sum it up, how many of you has tried Nephio on bare metal? Yeah, not too bad. 4. I'm just giving you the number because you might not know. Well, it works out of the box. Of course, there is a couple of things to do, but it works. And how many of you? Well, no. Anyway, I'm not going to ask. What doesn't work is cluster internet working out of the box when you have a bare metal environment, right? So it does work in the sandbox environment where we have a SR Linux that does it for us. We know how to fix this, by the way. We talked about it, so we have a solution to come. But if you take Nephio R2, well, be aware. This is going to be something you'll have to do manually in your fabric. Yeah, and I think this is pretty much, we walked in there like, yeah, cool. Yeah, Nephio is awesome. It's going to be great. And, a little bit of a roller coaster. Any questions?
Yeah, I'll be there. There you go.
What do you say when you say Nephio in bare metal? Are you talking about workload clusters and management clusters in bare metal, or separate? What if I have workload clusters in bare metal and management clusters outside the bare metal?
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter. What matters the most in this case is the workload clusters, because this is where we're deploying the application. So most of the feedback we're providing here is about the workload cluster to be bare metal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are two parts here. One is bringing up the Nephio, other is making Nephio work for your own use cases. The point which we are actually looking at is later. That is where we use Nephio to enable the complete cluster from bare metal, from I can say ZTP actually in a way.
But I mean, let me tell you, if you like challenges, honestly, the guy here at the bottom, he's having a lot of fun. So join the fun. Thank you.
Yeah, just add one point. I mean, the real challenge here is not Nephio, it's Kubernetes itself. Kubernetes on bare metal is not easy. There's a lot of open questions there. And the whole big projects, you know, from Akrano to Starling X and Linux Foundation trying to deploy Kubernetes on bare metal at scale. So we're kind of following the industry best practices here, but there's obviously a lot of work that needs to be done. I think OpenStack in this respect is far more, I mean, OpenStack started with bare metal and was, you know, certain opinionated decisions on how to do networking, but it does work. So it's kind of a wild west, I feel, still, Kubernetes and bare metal, and we're just supporting the trends as they come in, doing our best. Yeah, to an extent that there are a whole bunch of projects, and actually many of them here in Linux Foundation that are trying to address this from various angles, right? From networking to operating systems, right? Linux even, yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is exactly a place where we can synergize with Silva. Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.